Body image is your attitude towards your own body, and it's important to have a healthy attitude. To shed some light on a new way of thinking about ourselves, we're privileged today to have psychotherapist and transformative coach Jason Shiers join us from Manchester in the UK. Thank you so much for coming on board and chatting to us today and sharing your knowledge. I'm really grateful and excited to have you.
Yeah, no, I do so many. I've already done 2 other different podcasts today, and it's like I will never say no if I can really help one person. I'm happy to give my time for that. So I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, that's really awesome. Well, do you want to tell me a little bit about your work? You're a psychotherapist and transformative coach, and you work with a lot of people with eating disorders. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I've done that for a long time, probably more than 2 decades now, but I guess I would describe it as an evolving process because that was my own personal story too. So I spent many years suffering, trying to work out myself what it was I needed to do in order to be free, of my own mind. Yeah. And so the benefit, I guess, of the people who I worked with was that, as I was learning more and understanding more, I got to pass that on to the people that I worked with. And I can see now in my practice how that changes, how that's changed, how people have a different experience now to what it used to be like many years ago, because my own understanding of what the problem is has changed. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what I love to do,
Yeah. When you say it's changed, what do you mean by that?
I mean that when I first started, like 2 decades ago working, I thought there was only one way of change. I thought change was hard. I thought change was took a lot of effort, and it was a gradual process. And some people get it, and some people don't. And there's a real, one of the big things was that there was a real unexplainable thing, that like some people unexplainably could change and some couldn't, and it was like, and I didn't know why, and today change looks effortless and simple, to me, and the people that I work with, that's the experience that they have, that change is not the result of hard work. Change is actually effortless when you see the source of struggle comes from yourself and not from the outside world. So it's really a different perspective, a different seeing of what the problem is, and a different solution, I guess.
Okay, so if someone comes to you with body image issues or difficulties with, maybe they're got an eating disorder or something, what's the process then of working through that with them? As a client and therapist?
Yeah, I mean, like, there is no linear process, for change, and everyone is, conditioned. Everyone is born into the world, needing warmth and food and love. Just 3 things, And when they are born, they don't know separation. They don't know mine and yours. This is mine. They don't have a story of me. They don't know about eating disorders, and they don't need therapy, when they're born. They're born in complete perfection without any idea. And what happens is, over time, is they create an idea of themselves. We're conditioned. We're just naturally conditioned as a byproduct of society, we're conditioned by societal beliefs, family beliefs, cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, influential relationships. The list of things is endless that we take on this idea of the world. Now that isn't there, it's installed, we're not born with that,
Yeah.
And the thing is that that's happening unconsciously. We don't know that's happening, and it's like everyone is forming, what I call the image of me. So like, there's two words that are really powerful, and they are I am, and it's like when somebody says I am, and then they add something like I am my job, I am my age, I am my relationship status, I am my gender, I am my sexuality, I am my body size, whatever it is, it's like there's a whole list there, and all those things, no matter what you're going to say after that, is something that you've learned. It's not something that you're born with. The only truth is that I am, nothing more than that. And when I'm going to get to your question, but it's kind of a long way of answering it, so we've all formed beliefs about ourselves, about society, about other people, about right and wrong, how it should be. And one of the things that we have formed is this story of me, so I am all these things, and that's how the vision of how we see ourselves. And none of that is true. It's all what I would call transitory. It changes. If I ask you who you are on a good day, you're going to say those are good things. If I ask you who you are on a day when you're having a hard day, you're going to say, oh, I'm not very good at this. It's like, it's different, right? It changes based on your state of mind. It's not fixed. It's not permanent. So really the process, of helping someone is firstly helping them to see that none of that is true, because most people who have been suffering with body image and eating disorders have got this idea of who they think they are, the conditioning. And they've got this idea of some sort of perfect body, shape, person, life, status, financial, relationship, something like that. So they've got these two ideas that are really just there in their own mind. They're not true. They're not facts. They're not been born with them. They're just what they've learned over time, innocently, And they're trying to close this gap all the time. If only I could get more money, I'd be okay. If only I could not be so... If I could control my eating, or if I could just lose weight, or if I got on the scales and it got less, or if I could get a better relationship. So there's all this stuff, right, that people think, and it can be endless, and it can be all sorts of things. And like, there's the suffering is created in between two ideas: the idea of who I think I am, and the idea of where I think I need to be in order to be okay. And it looks like life is this journey, of getting from here, where I am now, to here, where I think I need to be. And it's like, this gap never closes. It can't close because it's made up. It's illusory. It's not real. So it's like, and here, this suffering, what's going on in between, that daily thinking about, oh, if only I could be more of this, we could get more of that, then I'd be okay. Like, this is the creation of the mind, which people escape from with food, which people escape from with their body image. The focus becomes about the body. If only I could get a better body, then the gap would close. If only I could lose weight, the gap would close. If only I could have more money, the gap would close. And this is not how people consciously think of it, but this is exactly what's happening in every person suffering. They've got an illusory gap between who they think they are and where they think they need to be. Now, food or body image is always just the symptom. That's just what people are doing to escape from the illusion that they've created. So, the process is not linear, but it's pointing to this and taking people on a journey of seeing, and really two of us looking in a direction and having an exploration of how that idea of self was created, and how this idea of this perfect world was created in the mind and is not real. And what happens is, I explain it like dominoes falling, that one domino falls and somebody sees that this is not real, that this part or this part is not real. And then they start to look and have realizations that all of it's not real, all the suffering, all the escaping, all the ideas about myself, none of them are true. And then it works in exactly the process works in exactly the opposite way of what people think, because everyone who I work with thinks that if I could just lose weight or change my body, then I'd feel happy, right? So it's about changing the outside to change the inside.
Yeah.
But it works in completely the opposite way, that while you're, it's futile to try and change the outside to change the inside. It's endless and it's impossible. But when the inside changes, when the perspective of who I think I am, who I really am, and how I think I need to be, and realizing that that's not true, when that falls away, then actually you can make clearer choices, and you can make choices and stick to it. Every person who's got a body image issue will say to you that at some point, and mostly a lot of the time, tried to go on a diet, tried to change their body, tried to do an exercise plan one day, and 2 or 3 days later they gave in. It didn't work. They ate something they didn't want to eat. They gave up. Everyone will tell you that.
Yeah.
And what really happens is that when the inside changes, when the idea of these 2 points is seen through, then people can make those choices and stick to them. And the outside just changes as a result of the inside. It's an inside out job. It's not an outside in job. You can't change the outside of your body to change the inside of your feeling. It just doesn't work that way. Yet psychology, and lots of sharings and lots of information out there will tell you that you can, if you just go to the gym enough, or if you just eat the right foods. There's a whole industry perpetuating the misunderstanding that if you just change the outside of your body, you'll feel happier, but it's a complete misunderstanding. It just doesn't work that way.
That's so wise and clever. I really love what you're saying here. That it makes a lot of sense. Like, I guess one way to think of it is perhaps if the illusions fall away, and rather than saying to yourself, I'm fat, or I'm lazy, or all those I ams, then if you understand that that's not really real, then you're just focusing more on you, and then you're possibly making better choices just for you. Is that what you're kind of saying? Like, rather than being on a diet or not on a diet, you're more intuitive perhaps about looking after yourself and feeding yourself what you feel that you need, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way of looking at it, and that's true. That is what happens in the process, of the dominoes falling. And, because people are not creating their own misery anymore. They're not believing their own thinking about themselves. They're not where does the story of eating disorder come from? Let's look at that, right? Like me personally, right? I was told at 7 years old that I had an eating disorder. I was sent to psychiatric services. I was put on medication. I was put on slimming pills. I was put on antidepressants at 9 years old, and it's like, now before that, I didn't know what an eating disorder was. I mean, it was given to me, it wasn't me. I didn't all of a sudden go, oh my God, I've got an eating disorder. I don't know what it is. It's kind of like, that's the part where there's an unexplainable, what I was talking about earlier about there being an unexplainable thing. Well, how did I get this thing called an eating disorder? You see, and here's a really interesting thing to notice, right? What happens with everyone is, right? So you don't know anything about an eating disorder. You've got these symptoms, which is the overeating. You go to a specialist, psychiatrist, psychologist, psychotherapist, counselor, someone working in the world of psychological change. And they give you this label. Okay, you've got an eating disorder, right? And then the label, the eating disorder, becomes the reason for the behavior. Is that kind of like, are you getting what I'm saying? It's kind of like, you had the symptoms, someone gave it a label, then the label becomes the reason for the symptoms. It's kind of like, and then it'll be like, well, how come I'm eating like that? Oh, it's because I've got an eating disorder. It's like, no, the eating disorder is the label for the symptoms in the first place. But it's like, no one picks up on that, and it's like, people then go along to explain their inability to have control over their eating down to their eating disorder because a specialist has told them, well, actually, news flash, there's no such thing as an eating disorder. It's just a made up concept to explain a set of behaviors. I understand many people suffer from it. I did, and that's my work. And I'm in no way minimizing here, but what I'm saying is it's completely made up. It's another illusion that people take on. It's like, we look towards professionals for help, and they give us innocently. I'm not saying any professionals are malicious. I'm saying they're a lot of the time lacking in understanding in what's really going on in the human mind, as I was too for many years as a practitioner in that way. But like, what we're actually doing is perpetuating the problem. You know, we're telling someone they've got this thing called an eating disorder, which we as practitioners can't even explain either. Well, why have we got it? I don't know. You know, it's kind of like, you know, it could be down to your childhood trauma, could be, you know, it could be a whole host of things, none of which we can explain, but it's just that, you know, that's kind of a bit what it's like. And I still work in that world with a lot of people who do that too, you know, and I find it frustrating, but it doesn't help people, you know, like perpetuating the illusion of an eating disorder, you know, it's kind of like, because I'm sure you know many people that identify as having an eating disorder, as I do too, you know, and as I did for many decades, you know, but the thing is, when I saw through beyond these two things that I talked about, the illusion, you know, it's like, what I realized, well, look, the eating disorder is an illusion too, you know, it's all part of the creation of the mind, you know, and going back to what you just said when you did your little summary of explaining, is this what it's like? Well, when I see beyond the illusion, then I stop living in this tunnel vision in my head, you know, the scope of my vision is no longer like this: eating disorder, food, body change, eating disorder, food, body change, scales, eating too much. It's not that anymore. It broadened, you know, and I see a world beyond my own thinking. And in this field of vision, you know, like, I get to have better relationships. I get to be present in life. I get to see the beauty of nature, of life, to be alive, you know, to be present with people and have beautiful experiences, and just to give love to people, just to care for people. You know, I do loads of work for free. I mean, people come to me if they can't afford it. I usually end up working with them for free because, like, you know, I just have a love for people who are suffering like I did. You know, it's just part of the thing that I do. And you know, it's just one of those things that when people see beyond their story, you know, they experience, as I did, you know, a different reality, you know, a world beyond their thinking about themselves, you know, and it's like waking up from so again, I'm kind of answering your question in the process. What is the process? You know, that like, it's like waking up from a bad dream, you know, and going, oh God, you know, look at all these beautiful things around me that I just hadn't seen before, because I was so caught up in my weight and my next weight and my next scales and my next gym and my next food, and why can't I eat enough and why don't I lose weight, and you know, because that's where I lived for decades, you know, and I don't even think about the scales anymore. I don't think about, I eat, you know, what I want when I want. I don't have that issue anymore. But my, you know, eating disorder, you know, over time was horrific. It was not it wasn't, I didn't kind of eat a little bit too much every now and again, you know. I stole food out of bins. I, you know, ate copious amounts of other people's food. I constantly shoplifted for food, you know. I did lots of crazy things. So I had an extreme, you know, struggle with food for many years. But like now I feel so free of it, you know.
It's probably a bit like, I was thinking, if life's a bit of a journey, like if you're on a train, say, and instead of sitting in the seat and looking around at the scenery and enjoying all the experiences and enjoying all the different countries that you go through, you're just focused on a mirror in front of you, and you're just so focused on that you're missing all the scenery, and you're missing the whole journey.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and also that you're racing towards death, you know. It's kind of like, that's the idea of, you know, the journey. I don't know if you know Alan Watts, but, you know, he was a famous philosopher, and he says that we do often use the word journey when we talk about life. Everyone does, because it's really kind of one of the best words for it. But Alan Watts says life is not a journey, you know, and what he said is it's like dancing or singing. You know, when you're dancing or singing, you're not like trying to get to the last step or the last note, you know, it's not like a race to get to the end, you know, oh God, I finished first, you know, it's not like that. When you're dancing or singing, you want to be there, you know, in the moment. You want to enjoy the steps. You want to enjoy the feeling when you're singing, you know, the feeling that you get, the presence, the awareness, the feeling of dancing, the joy, you know, and that's what life is like, you know. It's an experience to be enjoyed, to be felt, to be present in, not like a rush to the end. Because, you know, going back to all the other stuff, what I said about when people are lost in these two ideas, it also looks like there's a destination, you know. It's like everyone's heading towards somewhere. When I get to, you know, all those things that I said, better weight loss, better body, less thinking, more diet control, more job, more relationship, more money, whatever, more status, better house, better car, you know, endless list. When I get there, then I'll be okay, right? And it's like, that's what fuels these two things, you know, all the time. Like, there is somewhere to, but there's not ever anywhere to get to. Life is right now, this moment here, you know. There's no other moment other than this one. There never has been, you know.
That's so powerful, because you're right. The analogy of sitting on a train is like a race to the end. Like, and you don't want to think about that, really.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, how does going back to the body image issue, how do you think things like the diet industry, it's so huge, and you know, talking about meal replacement shakes and that whole, all these things that are set up to help us lose weight, do you think that just perpetuates the problem then?
Yeah, you're learning fast, you know. It's kind of like, you can see it, and it's like, see, there's two trains of thought here. Is that, like, the external physical symptoms of the misunderstanding, you know, is the weight, right? And the body image. So the weight and then the body image. And like, so any focus on the external change, you know, will always be futile, because you can't change the insides of yourself to change the outside. Now, that's not saying that every person doesn't have their own wisdom, you know, their own, like, universal wisdom that flows through everyone, you know. Like, let's say you go to bed with a problem, and you wake up in the morning, you're in the shower, and you go, oh God, yeah, I know what to do now. It just came to me. Where does that come from? What makes the grass grow? What makes the rain fall out the sky? You know, like a unexplainable force of energy that flows through every human being. You know, where did all creativity come from? Every single thing you can see around you, this computer, this idea, this desk, this house, came from nothing. It was an idea that flowed through some universal wisdom that flows through human beings. You know, it has to be true. There's so much evidence of it everywhere, you know, of creativity, of innovation, you know, like, it's just everywhere. So, like, every human being has access to that. It flows through all of us. It's what we're born with. It's our spiritual nature. But we cut ourselves off from that, you know, by getting lost in that, you know, these two things, this idea of myself and this, you know, like, if you're taking the waking up and getting in the shower and coming up with a solution to your own problem as an example, right? The reason you didn't have that wisdom pass through you the night before, when you would, oh God, how do I work this out? Because your own mind was very busy, you know. And when your own mind is very busy, you know, there's no room for wisdom, for that creativity or innovation to come to you. Because, and the reason it comes in the morning or in the shower is because you've got a clear mind. You're not busying your own mind up, you know. And I like the idea of a snow globe. You know, if you got a snow globe, I wish I had one. I need to get one because I keep talking about it. But like, if you got a snow globe, you know, and it's like, imagine this is your thinking and your mind, right? And it's like, the more you shake it, the harder you shake it, you know, the more blurry it gets, the less you can see, right? And it's like, all you have to do is one thing, right? Is just put it down. That's it. And that's the same thing that you have to do with your own mind. Put it down. Stop trying to work it out. And what happens is it just settles and settles and settles. And then when you're not thinking and you're not trying to work it out, wisdom comes through you. Like that moment in the shower in the morning, or on a peaceful walk by a river or by the seaside or on the beach, and all of a sudden, oh, yeah, I know what to do now. You know, it just comes to, everyone's had a moment like that. You know, it's like everyone has this wisdom that they just don't know they have it. Now, why I'm telling you about that, it's like meal replacements. Now, for many of us, it might be in our wisdom that's a good idea, that feels like the right thing to do. You know, like maybe I need more different nutrition, and when I've got a clear mind, when I've seen the illusory nature of my made-up world, it might seem like a good idea for me to have meal replacement shakes. Now that feel, the moment in the shower in the morning, it kind of feels like a deeper knowing, like, oh yeah, I just know I don't know why I know, but I just know, very different to trying to work it out. Pros and cons list, would it be good, would it be not? Oh, I'm really worried if this got two different feelings, right? Yeah. So when I'm trying to fix the outside of my body, like my shape, my size, with food by taking meal replacement shakes, it's very different to a sense of wisdom and going, you know what, I think my nutrition needs to change a little bit and meal replacement shakes might be a good idea. So I couldn't advise anyone, because everyone has their own wisdom on whether meal replacement shakes are good or bad. But I can advise everyone that you will know when they're good or bad for you, and if you're trying to fix the outside to fix the inside, then I'd say that's a good indicator that it's probably not a good thing for you. But if you're having one of those deeper knowing moments, like in the shower in the morning, and you have a sense that they would be good for your nutritional balance, then by all means, listen to your own wisdom and not mine,
I love that. I truly do. I think that's so wise. And going back to the dance floor analogy again, I think that's true, that if you're in the moment and you're experiencing life and you suddenly feel hungry or thirsty, then you're going to have something to eat or something to drink as part of that experience. Whereas if you're so focused and frozen and you're not experiencing anything, it's going to be a different experience, isn't it? You're going to be trying to control food and you're going to be trying to control these things, and it's going to be very different to just being in the moment and accepting and thinking, oh, I'm hungry, I need this, or knowing that you need this, or knowing that you need a drink of water or something like that similar.
Yeah, and here's a thing for people that have suffered for a long time, or even for a little amount of time. Two things. They've kind of, if anything like me, have lost the ability to decipher what is a good amount of food to eat and what a real feeling of hunger is, because they've been so used to just eating, even unconsciously, to deal with emotions, so like, there was a time when someone said to me, just eat a normal meal. And I was like, what is a normal meal? I don't know, clue what that is. It's like, I don't know. I just eat when I want what I want. Sometimes it's this big and sometimes it's just something, Yeah. And also the understanding, like when we're having what we think is hunger, it's like really like asking ourselves, am I really hungry? Now, when you're lost in the illusion, the obsession, the mental obsession and the physical compulsion becomes overwhelming. We can't really make decisions from that point. In fact, almost for all people that I've worked with, they're eating against their will a large percentage of the time. Like they can try and stop. They know, no, I don't want to do this, but they'll end up doing it anyway, and then question, well, why do I do this? Because that's what it is. Why do I do this? Yeah. Why do I do this even though I don't want to do it? So going back to the choices, as you come out of this nightmare, you can start when you find yourself going to the fridge, you can be more reflective. You can say, well, am I really hungry? And I was talking to someone about this earlier, to a client, about, well, I've noticed myself, that I've gone to the fridge and I've thought to myself, oh, am I looking in there and just closing it, looking in there and just closing it, and thinking, well, why am I doing this? And it's kind of like, and then start thinking about, well, yeah, I have had a bit of a tough day, and I can start to see the correlation between like having a few feelings and a bit of a roller coaster experience of a day, and then I find myself searching for food. It's just a habitual thing, that we've learned to do over the years. But as you become more conscious of yourself and more aware of the illusion, of suffering that's been created over time, then you can become more conscious of that. And I've, been saying to myself, okay, I'm not going to eat anything now and just see if I still feel hungry a bit, because it's almost like reconnecting myself with what the feeling of hunger really is, and now it's very clear. It's one of those that I say to myself, when I have to question, is it really hunger? It never is, and it's like, and when I'm hungry, I just know and I just eat and it's okay,
Yeah.
you know, and what has been really interesting for me is that, you know, reflecting on our true nature, you know, reflecting on the truth of who we are, the absolute truth, you know, that we're born perfect and that ideas are installed into us, you know, that my own children, you know, I've been very conscious of not projecting my own experience onto them, you know, like, so I'm watching how they behave with food, and I'm getting worried thinking, oh my God, you know, it's like they're going to end up like me, you know, it's like, and realizing that, you know, they have their own wisdom, the wisdom that I talked about, that we all have, that flows through us, and that when the time is right, if I haven't installed the idea that there's something wrong with them into them, you know, then they're going to find their own way in life.
Yeah.
Now, regardless of biological condition, you know, or anything, it's like that we all have wisdom, you know, we all have that wisdom that flows through us. So when we're not feeling broken or like there's something wrong with us, or we haven't inherited a label that's been innocently passed on to us, and we all have that wisdom, you know, regardless, you know, of whatever the biological condition is, you know.
Yeah, that's true, and that is so true, and it makes an assumption. I think if someone's bigger, like it has a higher proportion of body fat on them, that something's broken or wrong about them, but that's not the case at all, is it? Because you could be on the dance floor enjoying every second of life as a bigger than normal person, like bigger than average. That doesn't matter, does it?
No, well, I mean, a good way of looking at it is that like we're not our physical body, you know. It's like we reside in a physical body which has health challenges, you know, and nutritional needs and so on. And that's the process of being human. You know, we're learning about the body at all times, and the health needs are changing at all times, you know, and the feeling that we have, you know, about ourselves, about life, comes from within the mind, not from the physical body, you know, that everything is experienced through perception. So a lot, particularly for people who suffered with body image and food struggles, you know, it's like that we've become overly associated with the body, you know, like I am my body. And it's kind of like, we're not. We can be happy, joyful, content, and in the moment in a huge, you know, obese body, you know, physically obese body, or a really skinny one, or an in-between one, or a perfect one, you know, it's kind of like, or we can be completely miserable in a perfect one, or a skinny one, or a physically obese one, you know. It's kind of like none of them are, there's no relevance, you know, although we think there is when we're in it, but there is actually not. The only relevance is created in our own thinking, you know. You can be happy at any given moment, you know. It's like that when you see that happiness is not dependent on a physical shape or an amount of money or relationship or any of those things, you see that happiness, like all the things that people chase, right? Like, so peace of mind, joy, contentment, connection, those things are only available now. They're only available in the moment, you know. They're not available through weight loss, money, status, relationships. But that's what people are chasing in those things. They think that when they get that they're going to get these feelings. But those feelings are available to everyone right now, right here, this moment, this very moment, you know, for every person, you know, alive. That's
true. That is so true. That is really, really true. So if someone's out there struggling with an eating disorder and they're listening to this, what sort of advice would you give them? Like, where would you advise them to sort of start looking for help?
You know, like if you've heard something in this conversation that you think is interesting. So here's what I say to people is that, like, after we've had a couple of conversations, like the word transformative coach means that we have transformative conversations. So we have conversations that are transformative to life. You know, it's like, I'm not teaching you something. I'm literally like a tour guide, and I'm pointing to something that's true for everyone. Now, like if I was a tour guide and we were on a bus and I was pointing to the Eiffel Tower and you were looking on the other side, you wouldn't see the Eiffel Tower, right? So this is the same way that, like, we have an understanding about how to look, how to point and how to look. So transformative coach means that I share things and we talk and we explore things together, and you get to see something that's already true within you. I'm not teaching you something new. So if you've heard something in this conversation now, by heard something, I mean, like when I first heard something, I thought there's really something about what this guy's saying, but I don't know what it is, but I just know it's something, it's like, that's because often our intellect doesn't catch up to beyond our wisdom, beyond our knowing. There's something when we know something deep inside, yet we haven't quite worked out what it is yet in our intellectual mind. So if you've heard something in this conversation that you think is interesting and you want to hear more about, there's so many resources around, but a good start is my own podcast, Misunderstandings of the Mind, because what it does is it covers so many subjects where there's a misunderstanding. Like I've covered eating disorder, I've covered depression, covered anxiety, covered mental health, and I do every recording I've done them with doctors, I've done them with people, with therapists, people sharing this understanding, and they're all from the spirit, understanding our spiritual nature beyond psychological concepts and psychiatric diagnosis. So there are a real different perspective to the traditional way of looking at eating problems. And over a process, there's about 30 something episodes now. We've done love and relationships and connection and friendships and everything you can think of. I've tried to creativity multiple times, all different subjects. But they're really just this type of conversation, where when you listen in, you get to have an insight, and by insight, I mean, I call this insight-led learning, and by that, what I mean is that we have a transformative conversation, you hear something, you get to see something in your life a bit different, and everything changes, It's not like I'm teaching you something new, it's just a natural byproduct of the conversation, So that's kind of where I would point people to.
Yeah, I do. I really like that, because already you've definitely given me a new way of thinking, or some new ways of looking at things that I hadn't thought of before I spoke to you. And I think that's really useful.
It's worth noting about how we listen for something new, how we listen, that when we've been in the psychological system or the psychiatric system, we've formed beliefs about how change works. So we're listening for something. When we listen to a podcast or an audio about how change might work, we're kind of listening for something. And when we listen for something, we don't hear anything else other than the thing we're listening for, So it's like we really shut ourselves off from hearing something new. And I often, when I have new clients, I talk to them about listening, about how we listen, and like listening with the willingness to be impacted, listening with the understanding that I'm, noticing my own mind, trying to find or hear something, and when we shut off from that, there's an opportunity to gain a new understanding. Because what I'm talking about here is this whole conversation, what me and you have had, is new to most people. It's new. And because we haven't heard it, because they haven't heard it, it's kind of like, oh, I'm not sure what this is. I haven't heard this before. It looks different to what I've been hearing before. And for many people, they'll shut off at that point. They won't hear that. But what I'm saying is, is that there's a whole different menu. It's like going in a restaurant, right? And it's like, here's the menu. Do you want anything off the menu? No. Not really sure. Sometimes, well, actually, there's a different menu. It's kind of like, do you want to see it? Are you interested in seeing what's on this other menu? And that's kind of like what I say to people. Are you interested in hearing something different about how change could come about? Because obviously, the fact that we're having the conversation in the first place says that everything that you've done so far hasn't worked, because you're still looking for something, So it's really just introducing a different way of listening, to what it is that we're talking about here, because that's how we have an insight. We use the tools that we've got, our ears to listen, clearing the mind and listening beyond the intellect, beyond the filter that we try and filter all the information with. When we do that, when we just relax into listening and to be present in the moment, then there's an opportunity to hear something that's life-changing, in a conversation.
Yeah. That's very, very true. I do really agree with you with what you said there. Yeah.
And this conversation is about being willing not to know. Are you willing not to know? And let's explore together what could be true, for all people, what could be true for you, what could be true for me. And that's a life-changing willingness, when you're willing to explore, when you're willing to look in a new direction, it's like you're looking over here and I'm saying, let's look over here for a minute, let's just have a look together and see what we can see, and when we do that together, you get to see something new.
How did you come to this understanding yourself? Did someone else help and guide you, or did you do your own research, or?
Yeah, I came. Michael Neal was my coach, and he wrote a book called The Inside Out Revolution. And I heard one of his videos one day called "The Path of Effortless Change," and I was having that experience that I was talking about earlier, where I was hearing it and I was going, there's something really interesting about what this guy's saying. I don't know what it is, don't know why I'm interested in it, I don't know why I feel compelled or drawn to it, but I've got to know more. It's like there's something in what he's saying that's really making a difference. And I ended up going to LA, and spending some time with him. And then I did Super Coach Academy, which was his coaching program in LA a couple of times. And, it was just a life-changing couple of years of when I did that. And, I got to learn what I'm sharing now, not as only an intellectual, it's not a method, it's really just an understanding of how it all works. And I got to learn that and see it for myself and got to see it in others, and now that's what I do in my work.
Oh, that's great. That's so great. And it's so inspiring talking to you. And I'm sure it must be satisfying too when you can genuinely help people through these conversations. And can you share any stories of people that have sort of come to a better place within themselves through your work?
Yeah, I mean, there's an endless list of stories, and it's not linear and it's not the same for everyone, but what would be more, and I think more useful to people is the difference between when we talked about psychological change and spiritual change. It's kind of like in the past as a therapist, when I practiced that way, people would come and it would, I would see them for years, it's like for a couple of years, and it's like now pretty much, I had so many clients and that have come and within a short period of time have started to see life differently. And I'm talking less than 6 sessions usually, something drastic has changed with people. I do have longer term clients because they want to look deeper, because seeing what people are seeing to start off with is that they're not living in the outside world. They're not living as a victim of circumstance or trauma or loss or tragedy or body image, whatever it is. They're not living as a victim of that. They're living in the prison of their own minds. Now, that's the first insight that people usually have, that actually I've lived in this illusion for many years. Now, the reason people come to coaching for longer is they want to look deeper, that's the start of the journey, to put that another way, people come and they want one thing only. They want to stop compulsive eating. That's the one thing that they want. And I get excited by that because I think that's nothing. That's just the start, that's not the end. They think it's the end, but I know it's the start because there's such a world to explore beyond that, beyond just stopping eating. Now, I know that seems like a huge thing to the person suffering, but when that goes away and is no longer problematic, it's kind of like, oh God, there's all this stuff in the world. There's new relationships, there's new careers, there's new friendships, there's babies being born, there's being alive, being present in the world and enjoying the beauty of the world. A lot of which has been blinkered out, by the eating and body image stuff. It's been blinkered out completely. We've been oblivious to it. And we wake up to this beautiful world that's available to all of us. So I love that. It's like when you said you must enjoy it. Oh, it's the most amazing thing in the world. Like for someone who's in a very dark place or really struggling to suddenly wake up to feel joy and contentment for the first time and start to see beyond their own thinking. That's why I said I would do it for free, because you just can't. It's the most sense of being alive, being present with somebody as they have that realization. It really is.
Oh, it must be. It truly must be.
I love doing it. It's kind of like I will happily sit here at 10 p.m. and talk about this stuff because it's life changing. It was life changing for me. I suffered for so many years, and really in the prison of my own mind without knowing it, thinking I was in the prison of the circumstance of my life, and when I realized that, it was just like, I thought, this has got to be my work, it was just, there was no question or no choice, about that.
Yeah. How did you eventually come to some understanding or at peace with your own self? Was that were you able to do that before you found out about Michael? What was his name again? The author.
Michael Neill.
Michael Neill. Yeah.
I was on the journey. I was still seeking. I was always seeking.
Yeah.
Like in traditional understandings of addiction and eating disorders, people say seeking is a bad thing. It's part of the problem. But to me, seeking is our intuition, our knowing of home, our knowing of where home is, and it's like when we keep seeking, it's because we know there's something beyond our current thinking. That's the way I saw it. So I actually see my seeking as a blessing, because it kept me looking. I knew that there was somewhere to get to. And when I was having a somewhat progressive journey, but like I really was never free, and I never stopped thinking until those 3 days that I spent with Michael, in LA. It was like I on the third day, I remember sitting I was at the back of an Airbnb, and there was like a valley at the back, like a green valley, and there was a rope swing there, and I was sitting on this swing, and I was thinking, well, I just feel so peaceful, and I was thinking, well, I haven't got more money, and I haven't lost weight, and I haven't got a new relation. In fact, nothing's changed. It's kind of like, apart from my perspective, and it was like, and I just was looking, and I was thinking, that's so beautiful, it's so beautiful. Nature is so beautiful. Look at the flowers and the grass in this valley, and the sun was going down and the sunset, and I was just sat there like in awe of life, and I kind of thought, that's it, I'm free. I just knew, I knew in that moment, I knew that search, that seeking was over. I knew, it was like there's a deep place in me of going, that's it, this is home, this is home.
That's great. That's fantastic. That's really awesome. Well, thank you so much. Honestly, thank you for your time and for joining us today and sharing a bit of your wisdom to try and help us find some of our own inner wisdom.
Yeah, you're very welcome.